Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. A warm welcome to our distinguished panelists and extendees for today's Jayamitra webinar titled Wheat-Related Disorders and Arthritis. Our next panelist is Ms. Ishi Khosla, a clinical nutritionist and a founder of the Celiac Society of India. She's a practicing nutritionist, columnist, author, best-selling author, entrepreneur, and a researcher. She is extremely passionate about nutrition and a strong believer in the power of foods. She's spearheaded the first of its kind, a health food company in India called Whole Foods, as part of her commitment towards public health and community nutrition. Ms. Khosla founded the CSI, the Celiac Society of India, the first of its kind in India, to spread awareness about gluten-related disorders in India and abroad.
Quickly moving on to Mrs. Khosla. And ma'am, so I have a question for you again related to the topic today. And a lot of people actually confuse arthritis and osteoporosis. And obviously both being such common diseases, could you let us know the differences and also a couple of cases about how you've handled such patients and your experience? What is the most effective way?
Well, thanks, Arjun, for hosting this so well, and very happy that this topic is being discussed by medical professionals themselves with their own personal journeys. So it's very special. And here, you're right, a lot of patients do tend to have overlap between osteoporosis and your arthritis, simply because sometimes they can be painful in both cases, but they're very different. Arthritis is something to do with your joints and inflammation of the joints, as it just been discussed, whereas osteoporosis is bone loss, where there is more resorption than bone building, where the bones become brittle and the bone density is compromised. So they are very different, and but yes, they're both to do with connective tissue and skeletal issues. But yeah, they are different, and both also have their origin in diet and lifestyle. And of course, genetics does play a role. So yeah, to your second question, what I would like to say is that I have several cases where they're diverse in their presentation. So one of them came to me at the age of, the one I'm going to narrate in detail, came to me at the age of 48, 49. Now, these are patients who have had no history of digestive problems. They are non-obese. They have no hypertension. They have no other metabolic disorders. They have just come with pain in their joints and burning in their feet. This particular person was just otherwise normal and did not have a very strong family history of any major condition. Now we did the markers, they're not celiac, and you just go do further checking of their blood work. Their inflammatory markers are not elevated. Their ESRs, the CRPs, and the antibody testing for arthritis, all the 3 markers we do were all negative. However, there were nutritional deficiencies and general fatigue and those kind of non-specific symptoms. And basis that we initiated the diet and the supplements, and literally within a matter of 2 months, this gentleman was, absolutely fine, functional, and feeling better on his joint pains and overall wellness and energy levels. So it was clear. And then further down, when they take the trigger food, so it's not only about gluten, we also address other grains. So any of the trigger foods, like say, for instance, corn or soya or wheat in some form. Even he was a Sikh gentleman, so very often going to the Gurdwara, which is where they pray, small amounts of prasad, which was basically semolina and that's wheat, would trigger the symptoms back. And so he became acutely aware of those, triggers. And today it's been, I think, more than 6-7 years, and he manages his condition very well. What I have to add here is that this patient, initially we addressed the grains only, and then later on, when there were relapses and relapses, sometimes because of diverse reasons, at some point we needed to put him off dairy as well. And today, I think he is, he is having a very controlled dairy intake. He doesn't take dairy as such, but in terms of the grain science, he is 100% compliant. And there's another very interesting case I'd like to highlight here, where we have actual tangible markers to go by. Where she came, she was full-blown rheumatoid arthritis patient with a RA factor of 123, which is pretty high. And she was on medication. Dr. Dharmanand and Dr. Anshul will understand, and Dr. Tom also, that these medications are like Folitrax, for instance, was given once a week, 10 mg, 20 mg she started with, and then when she came to me, she was on 10 mg. And she was again non-obese, non-celiac, no digestive symptoms, but she came for body ache and fatigue and to lose those cosmetic 4 kgs and nothing beyond that. So I said, I'm not interested in your 4 kgs, I'm interested in your arthritis. So we worked on that, and literally within the 3 months that she followed the diet, and mind you, I'll also add something here, that she was given to believe by her treating physician, and not surprisingly, that this is a lifelong condition and there's nothing you can do and there's no diet that can help you. So she came with a very, very clear mindset that arthritis and that diet was not linked. So she was very surprised and very, under confident about what she was getting into. But she did it, and she found that symptoms, her fatigue and all her, so being on medication, she had symptoms. So all of that began to improve. But what was really remarkable was then she started lowering her dose of medication because her doctor was not doing that for her. She did it herself. And her RA factor from 123 fell down to 8.5 in a matter of 3 months. Then she sort of woke up and she said, is this for real? And today she is completely on board on her diet, and she knows her trigger foods. And one thing I'd like to add here is that all my patients, be it obese or for any kind of inflammatory conditions, with the with the COVID to pandemic 2.5 years, all of these have kind of rolled back in some measure or the other. And so we've had to work again on things and remove dairy also to help them get back into 100% functional situation. So yeah, and one very interesting patient I'm going to mention is she was a crippled. She was really deformed. She had, and a very, very high profile patient of the city, and attached to hospitals. And after a lot of persuasion, when she went on a wheat-free diet, she was like normal. She just kind of transformed. And I called her after 2-3 months, and I said, she was an aunt actually. I said, why don't you start omega-3 fats? She said, but why should I do it? I'm fine. I said, but you have arthritis. She says, no, all that is history now. I don't have any arthritis. I don't need anything. I said, that is the level of transformation. Sometimes they're so dramatic. So yeah, I think this is itself just explains and showcases, while these are they can be called anecdotal evidence, clinical experiences, but certainly they have a lot of learning and insights.
And quickly jumping to Mrs. Khosla also for my next question. And you said anti-inflammatory foods, and I'll want to learn more from Dr. Tom also. But before that, Ms. Khosla, could you tell us a little bit about the role of nutrition in arthritis, and any special takeaways, any foods that you recommend that should be avoided?
Well, certainly I will do that. But I think Dr. Dharmanand had raised his hand for something.
Please tell Dr.
Just add one comment to the other speaker. So when you are pregnant, and try to not get scared of normal vaginal delivery. If you have your baby born through vaginal route, you would have given them a very good start on the microbiome. A lot of young girls are now scared of vaginal delivery, and they opt for cesarean. that would be a disservice for your kid. That's what I wanted to add.
And on
we've
that,
noted that. Yes.
Yeah, that's a very important point. And on that note, I will just also add that if the mother is wheat sensitive or is making antibodies against gluten, these actually in the third trimester, the gut becomes far worse than in the initial parts of the pregnancy. And there is what we call a placental crossover, which happens to the fetus of these antibodies. And so it is like an unwanted gift to the baby even before he's born, or he or she is born. And so I guess maybe one of the things which sets the stage for juvenile or early arthritis and inflammation. Yeah, coming to the diet and the nutritional aspects, of course, since we are all clear on the fact that it's inflammation. So the biggest contributor of inflammation in our lives is our food. And so it is a centerpiece, and it has been reinforced in all the conversations that we've had so far. But just to give you, quick takeaway of 4 aspects or a 4-pronged approach to diet, I just thought I would put it as nutrients themselves, like we have the micronutrients and the vitamins and the minerals, like calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin K, and there are several others. That, and of course, a nutritionally balanced diet. There's no going, there's no compromise over there. So nutrition and the nutrients is one part of it. Digestion, inflammation, and elimination. So digestion, we are talking about the gut, how poor digestion can accumulate toxins. The mechanism we don't have to worry about, but definitely it is correlated with inflammation, and we do see those differences when digestive health gets better. We see the aches and pains in patients getting better. And so, improving digestion and gut health, whether it's through taking digestive spices or through probiotics or through enzymes or whatever. So certainly digestive health is important. And then is inflammation, and what we're talking about an anti-inflammatory diet. And here we have the role of good fats, the omega-3 fats. We have the role of collagen and, other sort of preparations which help to boost the connective tissue and reduce inflammation. We also have things like, turmeric, we're talking about ginger, we're talking about piperine. All of these have shown bauxelia. These are very, they're very strong, powerful anti-inflammatory agents in the diet. And like bone broth, we have that also in our traditional food. But none of these will help unless the root cause or the primary inflammatory triggers are not addressed. So then we come to elimination, the diet of removing the inflammatory triggers, like we've been talking about wheat, we've been talking about dairy, we've been talking about also things which behave like wheat to the immune system, cross-reactive grains, corn, soya, dairy, oats, all of these need to be addressed. And in fact, I here would take this opportunity to highlight the point which Dr. Dharmanand made regarding why certain patients probably do not do well and certain do well could be rooted in the fact that other contributory grains have not been removed. It's only wheat. And I can vouch for that because I see my patients doing brilliantly on the diet which we have set. And suddenly after 6 months, I get a call, and this particular patient had all her joints affected, and whatever small and big joints. She's pretty bad. And she was so grateful when things had gone, absolutely normal for her. And I got a call a few months later saying that my pains are coming back. So it was like, this was just too good to be true. So I said, no, you must have eaten something, which she says, no, I said, tell me the flours that you are having. Have you changed the flour from either the source of the flour or the composition of the flour? And so she went so I literally become a food detective, and we found that she was eating a trigger grain in the food, which was, in a gluten-free acceptable choice. So I said, go back to the old flour. And this flour was actually sago, that was an addition. And in my practice, while it's gluten-free, I know it's a trigger. So she went back to the, old flour, and that was it. It just kind of came back to normal. So certainly these are conversations, since we're talking about food and nutrition and the audience is eagerly waiting to get these kind of tips. I am sharing them with you, Arjun. And also certain people have trigger foods in what we call nightshade sort of vegetables, and individuals some kind of specific triggers which also do add up. So I think nutrition is a centerpiece, and we need to work with the patient closely to get to the right kind of diet for them and to address their supplements and their lifestyle.